So I've got 3 pieces. The first 2 you probably already know. I'm sure you have read them in school, and the last one is a surprise. The first one is by Wilfred Owen, a Welshman who lived to 26. He was an astonishing character, fought in World War I, and wrote many, many poems before he died so early. This one's called Dulce et decorum est, which I'm sure you know means it is sweet and fitting to die for one's country. So he says, bent double, like old beggars under sacks, knock-kneed, coughing like hags, we cursed through sludge, till on the haunting flares we turned our backs, and towards our distant rest began to trudge. Men marched asleep. Many had lost their boots, but limped on, blood-shod. All went lame, all blind, drunk with fatigue, deaf even to the hoots of gas shells dropping softly behind. Gas! Gas! Quick, boys! An ecstasy of fumbling, fitting the clumsy helmets just in time, but someone still was yelling out and stumbling and floundering like a man in fire or lime. Dim through the misty panes and thick green light, as under a green sea, I saw him drowning. In all my dreams, before my helpless sight, he plunges at me, guttering, choking, drowning. If in some smothering dreams you too could pace behind the wagon that we flung him in, and watch the white eyes writhing in his face, his hanging face, like a devil's sick of sin, if you could hear at every jolt the blood come gargling from the froth-corrupted lungs, obscene as cancer, bitter as the cud of vile incurable sores on innocent tongues, my friend, you would not tell with such high zest to children ardent for some desperate glory the old lie, dulce est decorum est pro patria mori. Good poem. Here's another one. It's by Thomas Hardy, a Brit, and it's rather lighter in tone. He says, had he and I but met by some old ancient inn, we should have sat us down to write many a nipperkin. But, ranged as infantry and staring face to face, I shot at him as he at me, and killed him in his place. I shot him dead because he was my foe. Just so, my foe, of course he was, that's clear enough, although he thought he'd list, perhaps, offhand, like, just as I was out of work, had sold his traps, no other reason why. Yes, quaint and curious, war is, you shoot a fellow down, you'd treat, if met, where any bar is, or help to half a crown. So, now the next one I'm going to read is can you fit this up a bit? It was a surprising one I found by an unusual woman called Mary Borden, an American woman born in Chicago, wealthy woman, married a Scotsman, went to Britain, and 2 months after her 3rd child was born, found herself in France for the Red Cross, setting up hospitals. In January 1915, she was with the Belgian Red Cross. Her hospital had the lowest mortality rates on the Western Front, and that continued. She kept on setting up hospitals, and when she wasn't busy with that, she wrote poetry. And it's astonishing poetry, unlike anything I ever read before. This one is from something called At the Sum, and she calls it the Song of the Mud. I'm going to read it. This is the song of the mud, the pale, yellow, glistening mud that covers the hills like satin, the gray, gleaming, silvery mud that is spread like enamel over the valleys, the frothing, squirting, spurting liquid mud that gurgles under the roadbeds, the thick, elastic mud that is kneaded and pounded and squeezed under the hooves of the horses, the invincible, inexhaustible mud of the war zone. This is the song of the mud, the uniform of the poilu. The poilu is a French soldier. His coat is of mud, his great, dragging, flapping coat that is too big for him and too heavy. His coat that once was blue and now is gray and stiff with the mud that cakes to it. This is the mud that clothes him. His trousers and boots are of mud, and his skin is of mud, and there is mud in his beard. His head is crowned with a helmet of mud. He wears it well. He wears it as a king wears the ermine that bores him. He has set a new style in clothing. He has introduced the chic of mud. This is the song of the mud that wriggles its way into battle. The impertinent, the intrusive, the ubiquitous, the unwelcome, the sliming invertebrate nuisance that fills the trenches, that mixes in with the food of the soldiers, that spoils the working of motors and crawls into their secret parts, that spreads itself over the guns, that sucks the guns down and holds them fast in its slimy, voluminous lips, that has no respect for destruction and muzzles the bursting shells and slowly, softly, easily soaks up the fire, the noise, soaks up the energy and the courage, soaks up the power of armies, soaks up the battle, just soaks it up and thus stops it. This is the hymn of mud, the obscene, the filthy, the putrid, the vast liquid grave of our armies. It has drowned our men. Its monstrous distended belly reeks with the undigested dead. Our men have gone into it, sinking slowly and struggling and slowly disappearing. Our fine men, our brave, strong, young men, our glowing red, shouting, brawny men. Slowly, inch by inch, they have gone down into it, into its darkness, its thickness, its silence. Slowly, irresistibly, it drew them down, sucked them down, and they were drowned in thick, bitter, heaving mud. Now it hides them. Oh, so many of them. Under its smooth, glistening surface, it is hiding them blandly. There is not a trace of them. There is no mark where they went down. The mute, enormous mouth of the mud has closed over them. This is the song of the mud, the beautiful, glistening, golden mud that covers the hills like satin, the mysterious, gleaming, silvery mud that is spread like enamel over the valleys. Mud, the disguise of the war zone. Mud, the mantle of battles. Mud, the smooth, fluid grave of our soldiers. This is the song of the mud. It was from 1917. Thank you.